Hello, everyone. Welcome to the first episode of Pints with Ayre for 2021, which still sounds like a science fiction date to me, but that's okay. I'm Brent Heffley. I'm the Sales and Marketing Director for Ayre Acoustics. I'm here with Ariel Brown, our Senior Engineer and VP, and Ryan Berry, our CEO and Expert Technician. Cheers, guys.
Cheers.
Cheers.
Yeah, it's winter here. It got down to 39 last night. I couldn't believe it.
Ooh.
I think it got up to 39 here this afternoon.
I think we peaked about there.
Nice. Yeah, it's we're super spoiled with like mellow weather here. I know it's not that bad in Boulder, but it does get colder for sure.
Yeah, the sun here kind of evens it out. So, you know, it is 39 here right now, for example, but when you go outside, you hardly want to wear a jacket just because of that sun.
Yep, absolutely. That direct radiant heat is super nice.
Mm-hmm.
So cool. Well, what winter beer did you break out? It didn't look too wintry. It looks a little lighter today.
Well, that was definitely a little bit more of a clear beer than we normally do.
Yeah. No, I went to the store and I was having a hard time, so I spotted a classic, one of my favorites. So excited to go with that. So I went with Pilsner Urquell.
Oh, cool.
Old classic.
Yeah.
Just delicious, clean.
It's so good. Like
refreshing.
they may need to make one beer, right? Like that's it. It's so good. Well, I was shopping and I thought of you, Ryan, when I picked this out. It's the Block 15 Highland Hymn Scottish.
Nice.
Ale. Yeah.
That's a good one. I've had that.
Yeah, this is the first time I had it. I really like it.
Mm-hmm.
After we get off, I'll have to pull up and see what kind of bagpipe music they have on Qobuz and put it in the background.
Next video, I'll bring my bagpipes and we'll play them.
Don't threaten us.
Nobody will watch that one.
You could do the outro. We could get a new like intro and outro with a little bagpipe music going. I love it. All right. Well, today we're going to talk about DC coupling. I think everyone that's watching this probably has heard of something that's DC coupled, but what exactly that means, why you would want it, any advantages, disadvantages. Obviously, we think there's advantages because we do that, but yeah, that's where do we want to start? What is DC coupled and what's the alternative to DC?
Yeah, so I'll actually start with the alternative because that's more common and there's some simple reasons for it. And so, any kind of mass market mid-fi gear is almost certainly going to be AC coupled. What that means is that there's more or less the signal reference to ground can be shifted according to its local ground. And so when you're talking about DC coupled, what comes in is basically ground reference, and you keep it that way. So what I think of the primary reasons to AC couple in cheap circuits is for when you have unipolar power supply. So if you only have ground and a positive power supply, so then your signal can only swing above ground. Right. And so you generally want, when you pass to other products, you need it to be able to generally swing around ground. So like in our products, we have bipolar power supplies. We have plus and minus equal and opposite power supplies. And so the signal can swing equally positive and negative.
Right.
The other reason is it's often called DC blocking. AC coupled products often have what are called DC blocking circuits. And part of that is for safety, so that they don't output DC or they're protected from DC coming in. But what AC coupling requires is a capacitor. That signal has to pass through a capacitor to be able to isolate those two kind of ground domains. And that's where the biggest drawback of AC coupling comes in, because you have to pass through a capacitor now. So the value of that capacitor typically has to be very large to be able to go to low enough frequencies.
Okay.
So if you want to go, below 20 hertz or down to 10 hertz or single hertz levels or even sub 1 hertz levels, typically, depending on the load impedance, you have to have a very large capacitor. Now, a very large capacitor, to do that in a high quality capacitor starts to become extremely large and extremely expensive to do that, in any high quality way.
Right.
Those are the two, off the top of my head, those are the two big things about AC coupling. And so, when we talk about our circuits being DC coupled, it means that there is a direct connection. There is no coupling capacitor involved. There's no capacitor in the circuit. So there's no question about its quality, and its limitations and its size and cost and so on. But what that requires is that we have bipolar supplies, which is a feature of our circuit naturally. But then it also puts more importance then on our own DC adjustment circuit, because now in power amplifiers, you typically wouldn't have AC coupled output. That's not, except you're talking about like a transformer coupling. That is the other way to AC couple signals, is with a transformer.
Right.
And there are some tube amplifiers that certainly have a transformer coupled outputs.
Yep.
But typically, for us, it's we certainly have to pay quite a bit more attention to our DC adjustment, and as well as our DC offset, because DC offset is now what comes in can potentially be amplified and put out.
Sure. So it's definitely more dependent on everything working correctly and together, and playing nice with each other. But as Ariel said, it removes that one component from the chain that can definitely have a huge impact on your sound, because it's right there on the circuit path.
Right, because you're either spending a lot of money on that capacitor and you have a really big capacitor to make it sound good, or you've got a cheaper, less expensive one.
And even then, I mean, you're throwing money at trying to make a problem as little as possible. It doesn't correct the problem; it just minimizes the problem.
Yep. Yeah, absolutely. That makes a lot of sense. Now, are there any other drawbacks to a DC coupled product in terms of connecting it with other products out in the world? Does that have an influence?
No. I mean, the only concern is going to be DC offset. As far as compatibility, as far as signal-wise, no, there's no other concerns there. The only risk is DC offset.
So one of the big disadvantages then is just kind of a manufacturability factor, because it does require a lot more time to be invested in setting each product individually.
Sure.
And that's one of the things that our technicians do. They spend quite a bit of time getting that DC to exactly 0 millivolts DC before we ship it out the door. And we not only set it once, but then we let the temperature get up to operating temperature on the product, then we make sure we double check it and set it again if necessary. And that adds time. So it's kind of a cost manufacturing, but the trade-off is that you get what we feel is the best solution.
Right.
Yeah. And we have investigated and tried some DC servo circuits that operate quite nicely and make make the assembly process far better. But once we took the time to listen to them and try to improve it as best we could, that's still a form of feedback. And we were hoping that it would be outside of kind of the frequency cutoff point would be so low that it'd be so far outside of the audio band, but it just wasn't the case. It still had a huge impact on the final sound.
So back to manual adjustments.
Yep. Sometimes the best way is the way you figure out in the beginning. We try to always kind of readdress things that are either issues or concerns or questions, and go back to the drawing board again and play with it a little bit more. And oftentimes we just kind of come to the same conclusion, unfortunately. And this is definitely one of those.
Yep. Now, has everything we've ever made been DC coupled back to the K1, V3 early days?
Virtually everything. There was one part of one circuit in the AX7
Okay.
that had to be AC coupled based on there was one part of circuit that we couldn't get away with doing without it.
Right. Well, so that's actually interesting. So you could actually have a component that has some circuits that are DC coupled and some circuits that are AC coupled. Potentially.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Between
I thought it was an
stages.
all or nothing thing, but
Yeah, it's like feedback, you know, you
Right.
can have, you can kind of subdivide that thing up into portions,
Sure.
and it might redefine how you talk about it.
Yep. Yeah. That's interesting. I didn't realize that. Cool. All right. Well, we learned something new every day. That's an awesome one.
This is a good one. This is actually one of those topics that, you know, I didn't know too terribly much about. So, you know, getting to listen to it was kind of nice for me too, because we all learn things.
Yeah. No, that's what I love it. There's so many different things I've learned in bits and pieces doing these. It's great.
Absolutely.
So,
Yeah. I know sometimes I think you'll find it's certainly lower end stuff. I think when you find some of those, what are they called, like hum busters or like a buzz buzz eliminators, I think some of those, at least when they're in the signal path, some of those could actually be basically AC coupling to try and break some ground loops.
Yep.
right.
Makes sense.
Yeah, it totally does. Totally does. The ground loop, the bane of an installer's existence, right? Like, damn, where's that hum coming from?
Yeah, we've chased a few hum over the years, particularly with phono stages, you know, back in the day with, you know, okay, well, let's figure out the ground on this thing. And
Yep.
you get there. Well, we always get there. That's a good thing. But, you know, sometimes it can be a bit of a headache.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. Great. Well, if anyone out there has questions on this, questions on anything else, or topic ideas for us, send us an email, pints@ayre.com. And until then, stay safe, enjoy a good pint, and we'll see you next time.
Cheers.
Cheers.
Cheers.